Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be, you can probably tell by the topic and the subject, difficult for me to record. I'm not sure how this will go down. I have a feeling that I'll be editing a lot. I don't know, as I tell this story. The second part of this will be a self-care video, and I just recorded that, so please feel free, especially if you're going through a miscarriage, to or have gone through one, to check out the self-care video as well, and hopefully get some tips and things that have helped me, and also in general hopefully will help you through this process. So if you are new to my channel, my name is Valeriekacian McCoy. I am a mom of 3. I have a 20-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 2.5-year-old. And I'm a married mom. I work 2 jobs. I work an office job in marketing, and I am a yoga teacher on nights and weekends. And as a yoga teacher, I teach all disciplines, including prenatal and postnatal yoga and babies and everything. So, and I'm also in the midst of developing a toddler yoga class I've been asked to do. So I'm excited about all of those things, but we're not talking about that. That's how I'm distracting myself right now. We're talking about some recent events in my life that have happened, in our life as a family actually, that have been very difficult to process. My husband suggested I make this video, and I was thinking about doing it anyway, as either a way to just personally have this recorded, or to share publicly so that anyone else that's going through this can also first of all, maybe know some signs and symptoms, but I can also know that others go through this too. And I'd have to say, as I was going through this difficult time in my life, I would watch a video, and some of the video is just not helpful at all. Some of it is super clinical. Some of it is just too sad. And so when you're going through this, it's like, I just shut it off because it's just awful. It was awfully sad. And some of it was just too in your face. So I wanted to record just a sit down video that talk to you a little bit about what my journey has been like so far. It's still ongoing. And then go from there. So I will start from the very beginning. I think it was April 17th from my calendar, looking at my calendar, that I had realized that I was about 3 days late for my period. And so I thought that I might be pregnant. I was also experiencing some difficult breathing. My legs were burning. Those are my symptoms when it happens. I wasn't feeling sick or anything like that. I don't really get those right away. So I usually get physical symptoms like breath, that's just like the blood starting to pump through the body a little bit more. And a little bit of heartburn sometimes, that kind of thing. So I decided to test, and I got the 2 lines and found out I was pregnant, and was pretty shocked. Wasn't any pregnancy that we were planning, so it was very much a surprise, and you know, a pleasant surprise. So you know, I was gearing up. Okay, we've got baby number 4 on the way now, and because I'm experienced in this anyway, I got some clothes right away, because as a yoga teacher, I knew I'd start to expand in my belly pretty quickly. I did in my 3rd one, and so I'm like, I just want to make sure I have what I need to be able to continue to teach comfortably, so I didn't feel like I was compressed. A lot of times, like, yoga leggings are like high-waisted compression kind of things nowadays. So I was, which is fine when you're not pregnant, but when you're pregnant, it just doesn't feel right. So I decided to get a couple of things like that. I got myself some ginger candies. I got myself some tea, things like that to support me. I generally, in the past, have had some issues with morning sickness. My third one, Killian, I feel like I had pretty bad morning sickness. I felt like I had the flu for a while, so I wanted to be ready just in case. Of course, now looking back, I was like, feel like I spent too much money, you know, but anyway, it's neither here nor there. It's just a couple of things that I got. So I got some things to prepare. I downloaded my apps so I could keep up with things. I called the doctor right away and got my appointment. My ducks were in a row. A couple of days later was Easter, so I told my parents and my sister, and then the following day at the office, I told people in the office. And some people may say, well, why did you tell everybody so early before you knew? And I told people that I felt that I needed to tell based on, oh my gosh, based on the work I was doing. So obviously my parents and my sister, I'm definitely going to tell right away. My husband, I'm obviously going to tell right away. And I decided to tell people in my office because I generally get sick. So I was worried if I was really, really sick. We were also going to go away to a conference for, it just wasn't one overnight, but a 2-day conference. And I was worried that if I were sick there, if I couldn't pick things up, people would be concerned about me. So I thought it was better to tell everybody what was going on. In hindsight, I'm really happy I did that because it made more sense. As my story progresses, you'll see why. But I also told one of the studio managers. I never got a chance to tell the other studio owner and manager in one, sorry. And then I never got a chance to tell the other studio owner before it miscarried. So, but she knows everything now. So I wanted to let the studio people know as soon as I could as well, because I wanted to, these are people I work for, so if anything came up that required me having some time off or getting lightheaded or whatever, or having to run out of the room because I needed to throw up, that kind of thing, they would know about it. So if there was any reports or anything about odd behavior from me, they would say, oh yeah, we know she's pregnant, this, that, and the other, and move on with life. So it just made me feel better. So I told only the people I felt really needed to know immediately. And that was it. So I went about my merry business for a number of days and was really looking forward to my appointment for my scan. I always get nervous the few weeks before the scan, because generally when you know you're pregnant, it's at 4 weeks. So that's what they consider it, 4 weeks, because normally 4 weeks later, 4 weeks since your last menstrual period, so LMP. You would expect your next LMP and then you don't get it, so that puts you at 4 weeks pregnant, when really you're just 2 weeks from conception. I know, there's like a time for like bird noises because people are just like, what? But anyway, so 8 weeks is when my scan was scheduled for. And Jen, that was the case with Killian too. And so that time before the scan is always scary for me because it's almost like you don't know what's going on. Your body is doing stuff, but you don't know what's happening because you can't physically see the baby. And then I always feel like once I physically see the baby, I feel like, all right, we're all good here. Things are okay. So I was a little nervous with all that as well. In hindsight, I was more nervous than normal. And I don't know why, but I was. So anyway, I was kind of, so as far as like with my symptoms during that time, I was relatively asymptomatic. Just gonna move this over here. Oh, that's so much better. Sorry you had to spend so much time with it the way it was there. I was relatively asymptomatic. So by that, I mean, I had a little bit of nausea. I had the breath stuff a lot. That's very common for me. I was a little dizzy, a little bit of heartburn, and had to pee a ton. At first, I had to pee a lot. Then I noticed by a couple weeks after, I didn't have to pee as much. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. but okay, fine. I mean, sometimes you just get used to it, you know, like the pregnancy hormones or whatever. That was my second one. I'd have to say with Nolan, when I was pregnant with Nolan, I was relatively asymptomatic as well. I didn't get nausea that much. I was traveling a lot. I remember having to pee a lot, but I did have long periods of time, like I went for long walks and didn't have to pee, you know. So I was like, you know, this doesn't happen with every single case. Marina and Killian I was relatively sick with, but Nolan not. So I thought, well, maybe every other one I get sick with, you know? And this one, maybe my body is kind of like, yeah, you just had a baby, we get the hormone thing and we're doing our thing. So I didn't think about it too much. I still did have some food aversions. My sense of smell was off the charts, all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, I think I'm pretty much on target with stuff. However, at one point I was like, I wonder if I should take another pregnancy test, because there were times where I didn't feel pregnant at all, and it was odd. But I was having swelling in my belly. I had to switch clothing pretty early already, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, well, again, seems okay. I'll wait until a scan and we'll go from there. So it was, I don't even remember what the date was. But, well, one day I do remember the date. So the Sunday, before I actually had the miscarriage. So the Sunday was, gosh, so today, I'm recording this today on May 13th. So it was a week ago on Sunday. So not the 12th, but a week before that, whatever that ends up being date-wise. And I had a little bit of spotting, brown spotting. I had spotting with Killian as well. And I had what's called, I think it's called a subcutaneous or something, hematoma with him. So that just means there's some bruising that happens during implantation, and that bruising, which is blood, sometimes starts to seep out if it's not absorbed by the body. That's what happened to me with him. So with Killian, not this one, with Killian, I had gone for a run, came back, and I had bright red blood. Freaked out. The next day I had nothing. I didn't have anything after that, actually. Called my doctor, went in, hematoma, we're good to go. That kind of, but I had already had a scan by then too, so I was like, they already had seen a viable baby and everything was all right. That was scary in and of itself. So when I saw this, I was like, you know, I had the hematoma before, possible I have it again. And so I kind of just let it go. I knew I was going to be going to this conference. So I'm like, I didn't see anything but like those two couple of things. So that was it. Monday I was fine. Things were good. Tuesday I was fine. Tuesday I left for the conference. And it was a drive, so like an hour and a half drive or so. So I drove out there, and everything was fine. Everything was fine that day. It was fine when I got there. About midday, like around noontime, I went to use the bathroom, and I was wearing a panty liner. I always wear panty liners, normally pretty much all the time anyway, but definitely when pregnant because I get more of the vaginal discharge. So I ended up going to the bathroom, and I had more of the brown spotting, but this time it was a little bit more watery, and on the very outside of just about filled the panty liner, and on the outside of the panty liner was pinkish. And I was like, well, this is not what I got with Killian. This looks different, and I started freaking out. I became really concerned. I started shaking. I told everybody right away while I was there. This is the thing, you can't internalize this kind of stuff. It's like, at least not for me. I have to tell people right away. So I called everyone's trying to calm me down. I'm like, I gotta talk to my doctor. So it seemed like forever. And I finally got an opportunity to talk to my doctor. I talked to the doctor's office. They said, yeah, you know, the brown spotting, this doesn't sound unusual. But they said that, you know, they wanted me, I couldn't come in that day. So they said, you know, what we'd like you to do is just come in when you can to get a blood test. And I said, all right, I'll be in tomorrow. Like, I'll be in tomorrow afternoon. Get yourself a blood test, and then we'll set you up with an appointment for a scan on Thursday. So we're gonna check your hormone levels, see how those are doing, determine if you need a shot or not, because sometimes they'll give you a progesterone shot if something's happening. and we are going to check out, and then we check out the scan and see what's going on scan. Okay. So I felt better that I had called. I was still super, super nervous because I kept spotting. So it wasn't just that one. It just kept happening now. Now, when I spotted with Killian, I'd spot here, and then I'd go a long time and nothing. And then I'd do a little spot there, and then I went a long time and that. So it wasn't, it was not continuous like this. So I was concerned. At this point, I also noticed that a lot of my symptoms had started to fade. Like, and I think I was coming to terms with the fact that they had been fading over the past few days. Like, I had felt less and less pregnant over the past few days. And it was a time where usually, this is at 7 weeks. So usually at 7 weeks, I am like passed out cold when I'm pregnant. Like, I am by 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks, I am dead to the world when I'm pregnant, like sleeping all the time, sick, not being able to eat. That's pretty much standard for me. Nolan, I think I was a little bit better, but I was still pretty exhausted, and I just didn't feel any of that really. So I was really concerned, and I was super nervous throughout the time where I'm trying to get some work done at this conference. And the work that I have is really like managing the conference. So it was difficult for me to manage a conference and difficult for me to help others while I was freaking out inside. I had a little bit of bed rest, like an hour of bed rest on that Tuesday, just to put my feet up and like just in case I was overdoing it. And then that Thursday, oh, so that was on, oh, sorry, that was Tuesday, last Tuesday. And then I got through the rest of the time, went to bed, and I was having like pretty intense dreams, which is pretty common with pregnancy as well. I was just kind of enjoying these dreams in my pregnancy. I had a dream that night that there was bright red spotting now. And I was like, I woke up concerned. And I went to the bathroom. Everything was fine. In fact, there was like barely any spotting now. I was like, okay, well, maybe this is fine. I just like a tiny little drop of brown on my pants liner. So this is an improvement, right? So I'm like, oh, okay. So I take a shower. I had to go to the bath. So this is another thing that happened too. This might be TMI, but oh well. I usually, when I'm pregnant, I'm more backed up than anything else as far as with having to go do a bowel movement. Usually I'm backed up, and I had been at the very beginning of the pregnancy. You know, you're taking your prenatal vitamins, those can back you up, and then obviously the hormones will back you up to slow down your digestion and everything. So I was like, I had to go to the bathroom, and it was gonna be like a more intense experience, let's just say that much. So I went to the bathroom. Like, it's so weird because the last couple of days I've gotten this. Now, that's the kind of thing that I get like before I'm gonna have my period. So generally I know when I'm gonna get my period because two things happen. I start sweating, and I get night sweats right before I have my period, and I get like kind of what I call loose in the caboose. I can't even believe I'm laughing, but I am. I just have to like think of something that helps me get through. And so this kind of stuff was happening. I wasn't getting sweats yet, but I would. So when I went to the bathroom, I happened to look down in the toilet, and there was blood all in the toilet. Now, it looks a lot more in a toilet than it would if it was in a pad or something. So I was like, you know, Valerie, just maybe it's nothing. Maybe it just looks like a lot. Maybe it's because you just went to the bathroom. But I got out of there, got dressed, and I'm like, a voice came into my head and just said, get out. Like, get out of there. Go home, you know. I called my doctor's office, which was, I think, all on call, because it was 6 a.m. on call services. Left a message with on call. Got my stuff, checked out of my room, went downstairs. I was ready to head back at any moment's notice. heard from the midwife that was on call, and she again asked me what was going on, told me that this could still be typical, so not to freak out yet, you know, that they wanted me to come in that day for blood work and the scan, and then we're gonna go from there. So forget the original game plan. This plan was to go for the scan and for the blood work. And so I left as soon as I could. I finally got a call from the scheduling office, said, can you come in at 10:30? There was no way I'd get there in that time. They scheduled me for 1:45 to get here. So I left right away, grabbed all my stuff, headed out. Just said bye to one person, that's it, and headed the freak out of there. The whole time that I was driving home, I was bleeding. I was bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, and I knew at that point this wasn't normal. This is not what happens with Killian. This is atypical. My symptoms were like nothing. I wasn't hungry at all. I was thirsty, like I've never been thirsty in my life. I kept drinking water. I think I drank like this size. I think I drank like 3 or 4 of these in a very short time heading home. I took back roads. I couldn't even do the highway because my mind was so out of it. I wanted to be able to pull over and get sick or go to the bathroom or whatever I had to do right away. So it took me forever to get home, and I was completely out of it. And of course my mother said later, she's like, they let you go home by yourself? And that's when I noticed that I probably shouldn't have driven home alone. I probably should have had someone with me, and I didn't. So but I didn't think of it, and I was okay, so it's all right. So anyway, this is gonna be a long video. I'm already at 22 minutes, so I'm gonna keep talking. So I ended up, I got home, I ate a little, and then I went to my appointment. I had, I'm trying to think of how it went. No, I had the blood work second. So I went and I had my ultrasounds. I had to go to the hospital for ultrasounds. I went to the hospital for ultrasound, and they started scanning me. And when they scanned, I took a little peek at the screen, and I saw what looked like the gestational sac, which is that like kind of rounded area. You see like almost like an edge, and then like kind of a black blob in the middle. I didn't see anything else in that blob. Now in the past, with my past ultrasounds, I have seen my baby in that blob. So I was really sad. But I was hopeful, and the woman said to me, you know, your baby could be just really little right now, so we're gonna do transvaginal. So we did transvaginal, and she did all the scanning that she needed to do. I was as patient as I possibly could be. I didn't ask that many questions. I just didn't know. I guess I didn't want the answers. But I was not. I was not hopeful at that moment. At 7.5 weeks at that point, I should have seen something very definable as human. So I was told to go up to my appointment. I had an appointment with the OB. I had my intake at the OB, and then I waited what seemed like forever. I think it was 10 minutes, and that's a long time to keep someone waiting who's gonna have bad news. But I just literally, I just breathed. I concentrated on yoga, breathing, and meditation, and finally the door opened, and the midwife came in, and I didn't know who she was. Even in 2 years, they changed a lot at my OB's office. So she came in, and the first thing she said to me was, when did you test for pregnancy? So all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, have I not been pregnant this whole time? Like, am I crazy? Like, did I take a test and it said I was pregnant, but I'm actually not pregnant, and now I'm insane? Like it just seems so weird to me because I had all these symptoms, but they had started to fade. So I'm like, maybe I am a crazy person, or maybe my test was deficient. Like, oh my God, and it's just like my period coming. Like, how bizarre. And then from nothing, I'm 41. So I was like, gosh, maybe I'm in menopause and I've been thinking I'm pregnant this whole time. Like, how crazy. Well, I said to her, I'm like, look, I track my cycle in an app, and I think this is about the time, and I told her the 16th, it was actually the 17th, whatever, but that I tested, and that's when I got the positive. And so she's like, huh. And I'm like, I really don't think there's any like way I was not right. It wasn't right. So she said to me very plainly that in my scan, they couldn't find a yolk sac. And there was a gestational sac and no yolk sac. And so that moment I knew. I knew. I knew it was over. Oh my God. So I started crying right away. I know enough about anatomy and everything to know. Enough to know. And so she talked to me about what they planned to do, and the plan was to give me a blood test, see what my hormone levels were, and then in 2 days give me another blood test to check hormone levels. And if they were dropping, it wouldn't be a good sign. If they were the same or elevating, that was actually a good sign. She said she didn't think it was ectopic, which is when the embryo implants outside of the uterus, but she couldn't rule it out, she said. Well, she said this is what she thinks. She said they couldn't determine that there's a viable baby in there, but they also couldn't determine that there wasn't. So she wanted there to be a little bit more time. So she said the hormones were gonna let us know, and then we'd have a scan the following week to see if there was any physical development, and maybe things just weren't, they weren't, the timeline was different than what I thought. So I'm like, all right, well, I was pretty sure that this was not, I knew the timeline, so I was like, I don't think so, but we'll just go with it, what she says. I had, and she talked to me also about the 3 stages of miscarriage. So, or my 3 options if I were miscarrying. If it was a miscarriage, it would be either my body would process the miscarriage on its own. Second, there may be something called a D&C that they would have to do. So it's a dilation and curettage or curettage or whatever. What they do is they dilate the cervix, and then they go in and they remove any tissue. I did not want that because that sounded a little bit too close to an abortion for me, and there was just no way I was going to have that. Another thing they said they could do is give you some pills, and that stimulates the uterus contractions so that the tissue can come out. That was another thing. I was like, sounds too much like an abortion. I'm not doing that. So I was like, please, I was like, said to the universe, please, if I have to have a miscarriage here, please let my body handle this naturally. I can't do any more than what I'm already doing. Please. So, interestingly enough, so I left anyway. So I had the blood work done and I left. Oh, that's true too. I had a pelvic exam. She gave me a pelvic exam. She said that my cervix was closed, and the bleeding was actually coming from an area outside in the cervix. So I had an area of irritation in the cervix, and that's where the bleeding was from. So I thought, well, maybe this is something. But the fact that they couldn't find a yolk sac, that just told me something else was going on. I knew enough to know enough, you know. So I was so upset, went home, so upset, told my husband. Thursday, I tried to go into the office. I was like an insane person. Like, who does this? I was so emotional, so crazy, talking to people. I left. I was there for like 4 hours and I left. I couldn't even be there. I left and went home that night on Thursday night. I woke up in the middle of the night to severe cramping. Now, all along too, in case you're wondering, I have been bleeding all along. So I've been bleeding and bleeding and bleeding this whole time. So that's another thing. I was like, there's just no way. Like, it could be the irritation in the cervix, but if it was irritation in the cervix, like, the bleeding would start to go away. I know it. So I just, I I woke up and I had terrible pain. So to kind of let you know what the pain is like, the pain was like a kind of like, think about with your nail, like your nail scratching. It felt like a nail scratching on the inside of the cervix and the inside of the uterus. So we're gonna go very low into the belly space. And at the same time, on either side of my hips, there was like a drawing or pulling down. And if you've had a baby before, it's similar but not exactly the same as having labor. So there's a drawing, pulling down with a little bit of this like almost scratching feeling and menstrually cramping kind of thing and low back pain all at once. It was so intense, and because it woke me up, I was worried I was going to have to call my doctor. I was also concerned that there wouldn't be anybody to help me and I'd have to drive myself or call an ambulance because my husband would have to stay home with the kids, and I was just like thinking too much, you know? I fell asleep thinking all this and woke up in the morning with nothing. No cramping, no pain, nothing. I went to the bathroom and I was definitely bleeding out. So I knew at that point, and I could feel myself coming to terms with that. But it's just like, I know what's happening. I'm not denying that it's happening at this point. I'm just knowing it's happening. And my doctor called on Thursday and told me that there's early Thursday morning, and she told me, oh, that's right, I didn't tell you the early Thursday morning, so that was the Thursday night. The early Thursday morning is she called me early Thursday morning and told me that my hormone levels were normal. So that was another thing. So I have normal hormone levels, I have this bleed, but I do have the irritation. But then by Thursday night, having that severe cramping and the blood flow was increasing, I still knew that it was a miscarriage. So I, Friday, I mean, it was Thursday and Friday. Yeah, Friday was a blur. My husband got me to go out to lunch with my son, he and my son. I really am glad I did that, but I did have to field a call from my doctor while I was out there. Friday morning, I went and did the blood work. Even though I knew I was miscarrying, I did the blood work. So I did the blood work like I was supposed to. My doctor called me a couple hours later and let me know that my hormone levels were dropping. And I told her that that made sense because I had that terrible cramping and my bleeding had gone up. So she, you know, gave me some advice, and the advice was pretty much just, you know, just kind of taking my time. One of the big things they're looking for is the amount of blood. So if you were passing so much blood that you were filling like an overnight pad an hour, so those big, huge pads you use like after you have a baby, then I would need to call them so that they could address that. So I, but activity levels, I asked about activity because I was teaching yoga. I actually taught 2 classes on Thursday night too, believe it or not. And they were just saying that activity could be the same as long as it didn't increase the blood flow up that much again, that like, you know, overnight pad an hour kind of thing. Or if I was feeling intense pain by my hip. Intense pain by the hip could be the ectopic. So it'd be like one hip, not like I had on Thursday night where I have a drawing down on both sides of the hips. Yeah, so it was pretty much confirmed by that on Friday. And so she scheduled me she told me we were going to have blood work and another appointment in 2 weeks. So the blood work and the appointment in 2 weeks. So I have an appointment with them on May 22nd, which is a week from Wednesday. That appointment is the appointment to make sure that my hormone levels had gone back down to 0. So the reason is some bodies hold on to the pregnancy hormones for a long time. And if you have pregnancy hormones in your system, your body can't go back to its regular cycle. So they needed to make sure that those levels are completely down and then have an appointment with me to see how I'm doing. So I'm going to have blood work then and an appointment to see how I'm doing. I'm sure they're going to give me a pelvic exam to make sure everything looks good. And then I'll have some conversations with them about when I should expect my next period, because I'm not sure. I didn't even talk to them about that because I didn't think about it. But from what I've read online, your next period after your miscarriage could be 4 to 6 weeks later. Of course, knowing that you could be you could still ovulate a couple weeks before that next period. So just kind of like considering that situation. So yeah, we've got all of that. And I'm sure they're going to want to talk to me about birth control, but birth control doesn't work for me. Pill birth control is awful for me. I go mental. The last time I was on it, right after Killian was born, I was like a crazy person. So that doesn't work for me. Usually cycle planning works best for me. And honestly, yeah, cycle planning works. And I've used the ring, the Nuva ring before, and I was hemorrhaging from the Nuva ring. So none of that works good for me. So my answer is going to be no. I'm just going to do cycle planning. And should we decide to try to conceive again, then I'll use cycle planning for that too. I don't know. I mean, it's just the way it goes. Since then, kind of let you know what's been going on since Friday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Today is Monday. I am continuing to bleed. I have passed drained tissue, so it's different than any period you could ever have. It's also very different, similar but different from after you've had a baby. So the cramping of a miscarriage does come in almost contraction type style of cramping and then it will stop, and then a little cramping and it will stop. The first couple days were the worst. I'm still getting some cramping, but not as much. There's heaviness everywhere below and everything's swollen. Like even my bum is swollen. Like sitting down like this hurts. And I'm just kind of all swollen and not feeling so great. Digestive wise, my digestive system has been off as well. I mentioned to you about having sweats. So I've been having night sweats every so often. I'm not having them now, but I was almost like after you have a baby when you have a little bit of night sweats. So they were very mild, much more mild than when I had my babies, but definitely a little bit of night sweat. And my symptoms are pretty much gone. Like my pregnancy symptoms are pretty much gone. So I feel like I can eat. I'm not smelling things as strongly. I was just at the food store today and I was like, I don't smell anything. I'm like, oh, obviously I'm not pregnant anymore. And as far as with movement for myself, I find that movement does increase the blood supply or blood flow. Maybe that's a good thing. It's allowing my body to purge things out, but I'm reminding myself that my movements need to be small. I'm also reminding myself too, I'm dizzy at times and I still have some blood pressure issues. So if I get up fast and I come up, the blood rushing to my head is pretty extreme. So I've been taking that into consideration as well and keeping my movements slower and smaller. Gotta remind myself to put my feet up too, and when the baby wants to be held, I gotta remind myself not to pick him up as much, just for another week or so, just while I'm getting my bearings, and ask for help. That's another thing I've been trying to ask my husband, reminding myself to ask my husband for help if he doesn't notice I need it. He knows I'm a strong woman, so he doesn't always come in to rush to my aid. So I am just trying to remember that. And just enjoying. I mean, I had Mother's Day yesterday, which was a very difficult day, because I feel like I'm a mom of 4. Like I've had 4 kids, even though one of my children didn't last past the 7-week mark. But it's really tough. My husband gave me a super nice gift that has like, it's an Alex and Ani necklace with crystals for each of the kids' birthdays. And that one was so lovely, but also really hard because I was thinking about how December would have been another birthday, and now it's not. So I will find a way to commemorate that day on that chain. I think maybe some angel wings or something special that will help to commemorate that little flower. Something beautiful like that I think might be nice. What else? I've been feeling really run down. If I don't take vitamins, oh man, I feel even more run down. I'm definitely low on iron. Trying to get some water in, making sure that, you know, to watch the self-care, because all that stuff I talk about self-care is in that, what I've been doing for my self-care. And really trying to process this, knowing there's going to be times I'm crying and there's going to be times I'm okay, times where I can joke around, and times where I'm staring at the wall and not knowing what to do with my life and not knowing what to do in general. So that's where I am. And this is, you know, less than a week since the beginning of my miscarriage. I had no idea. I always thought that miscarriages were like one day and you were done. Miscarriages go on for a long time, and apparently the physical process of a miscarriage can go on for about 2 weeks. So you have 2 weeks of bleeding, and before your body is coming back to normal, and that just mystifies me. I mean, it makes sense to me on a physical level, but every time I go to the bathroom and I'm cleaning up a lot of blood and blood clots, it just keeps bringing things back to me emotionally. So I am prepared for my body to cleanse everything out so that I can be done with this and I can come back to feeling healthy again and just doing what I gotta do. And I have to say, like, even emotionally, like having my first regular cup of coffee in the morning just was awful. It just felt bad. I love my coffee in the morning, but I had gone down to like a quarter calf coffee while pregnant, so I could reduce my caffeine intake gradually, and having a regular cup of coffee was, I thought might be a treat, but it felt like, I don't know, I just felt awful. Anyway, so that I've really gone through, I'm like looking at the 17-minute mark and I've already stopped it at 22 and reset it. So this is a super long video, and I hope that's okay with you, and I hope that you will scroll through parts that don't speak to you, and you will highlight other parts that will. And please, would love to build a community of families that have gone through miscarriage. I just keep hearing about how common miscarriage is, but it's like no one talks about it. It's like until I share my experience, I don't hear about other people's experiences. And I know it's out there, but God, I can't, I don't understand why we sweep these things under the rug and make women suffer silently. Like, just tell people you've had a miscarriage if you had one. It's okay. Like, people will understand, and those that don't, that's their problem. And for me, like, I'm telling everybody, it's like I might as well have just told I just told the whole world on here, but it's like I've been telling everybody because I think it's important, and it's important for people to know that it's happening and that it does happen. And it happens much more frequently than you would think. So if it's happening to you, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, I've come to terms that it's my doctor said more than likely it's just a chromosomal issue. It's nothing I did. It would have happened no matter what. Like, if I was rude to my body or super good to my body, it was gonna happen. Knowing that's chromosomal, also I'm over 40 years old, and it's more likely to happen when you're over 40. Now, does that mean I could never have another child again? No, it doesn't. But it does, it just means that after 40, the chances are a little bit higher of getting something like this. So that's it. So I'm just gonna wrap this up now. Like I said, this has been such a long video, but I hope it's been helpful to you to hear my process, help know what's going on. And then definitely, once I've posted the self-care for miscarriage, please, I hope you'll watch that as well. I'm hoping to be able to share some important points with that as well. So thank you so much for visiting my channel. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Please comment below so we can build community around this topic. Let me know if this has happened to you, when it happened to you, if I can help you out at all, or if you have questions, if you think you might be going through one. Definitely contact your doctor because they know the best. But if you feel like you want to talk to someone else too, I'm here. So thank you so very much for watching this extremely long video, and I really hope to hear from any of you who wish to reach out. And if you're just sending me a silent message, I'll listen for that as well. And thank you so much. Namaste. Do such good work for others. And please, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'll be sharing some things I'm doing and some changes I'm making this summer. So I hope to see you around. Thank you so very much. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.